Larsson updates us on Cephalid Breakfast.
Next on Eternal Durdles.
Hello and welcome to the holiday season of Eternal Durdles. This December, we are celebrating the holiday season by posting a video every single weekday in December. That means 5 days worth of content every week. As you can imagine, that's a huge lift. It's basically like a second job for me at this point. So if you can support us by going to patreon.com/eternaldurdles, that would be much appreciated. As always, the show is free, but you can get ad-free content on Patreon. You also will get, starting January again, a bonus episode from us every week. And without further ado, I just wanted to thank everybody who's already a patron. And here's the show. Hello and welcome to Eternal Durdles. I'm your host, Zac Clark. And with me this week, special guest, Larsson, Cephalid Breakfast player and Eternal Weekend Europe champion. Congratulations and welcome to the show again.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure to be on.
Yeah, I feel like I had a cold shot having you on, like having you on like 2 weeks. Like I picked a good deck, I'm going to give myself those props. But I also picked the guy who was going to win the event. So, I mean, not to give myself too much credit. You did a lot of the work, I feel like, but
Well, I guess sometimes you're just lucky.
That last match was phenomenal to watch. Like that was just a masterclass in like playing the game, being patient, waiting for your chance, and then like all 3 games were just like amazing to watch.
It was fun to play as well, but it was like sitting there and playing the games. I especially in like the first match, kind of thought I'd lost in the mid game, and then like nothing really happened, and I like okay, maybe I got to. He had exhausted quite a few of his win cons already, and that's a mistake he told me about. That he binned one of his 2 hull breachers with a survey land.
The one thing I noticed, and I don't know if you guys discussed this, didn't he have a timeless dragon in the graveyard for like a long time and didn't activate it?
He did. He forgot it. I forgot it as well. Because I had a Memory's Journey in hand, but didn't target it. I kind of realized it somewhere in the late when he started to look at my graveyard.
Yeah. You were like, oh no. I've been there where you both just forget. I've had like, you both forget chalices on the board and your opponent just starts casting stuff and you start casting stuff and you look down and you're like, wait a second.
Yeah. It's so easy. Like you have your kind of game plan in mind.
Yeah.
Things that fall outside of that, like, because in the that was like turn 3 or something, he cycled it, and then I played a bunch of stuff which he had to answer. So I mean, it's easy to make those mistakes. I made a bunch of mistakes in those games as well.
Well, to that end, obviously, huge congratulations, big ups to the archetype for getting spotlighted. This is I think it's the first time Cephalid Breakfast has won like a major event that I can think of off the top of my head. Oh no, that's not true. There was an SCG con that Brian Koval won last 2 Marches ago, like 2 years ago. So there's that one too. The deck is sneakily very good.
It is, especially now with Nadu.
Yeah. Eternal Durdles is proud to be sponsored by Moxfield.com. Moxfield is the best deck building website on the internet. You can find all of my and Phil's decks in links below, including decks from this episode. And if you do, you'll be directly supporting the channel. So you have your One Ring in the background. I see that. That's awesome. I wanted to share with you because I have a big card too. I did not get it. We got it. I think I got it for winning a Legacy side event in New York like a long time ago at a Grand Prix. Not as cool as yours, unfortunately. Just sadly not as cool as yours. It is Waking Sun's Avatar. I basically like to use it to block the sun out when I'm recording during the day. It's just not. Its only use is that it's good light block. But
I've joked with my friends that I need to start playing Karn decks so I actually can bring out the
Slam it.
Play Karn minus. Oh, I'm gonna go out to the car and
I'll be right back. Just turning it sideways using both hands. It's great. They need to make a Chaos Orb. just for the lulls, like you're like. But yeah, so we're here to talk about Cephalid Breakfast and its place in the metagame post banning of Psychic Frog and Vexing Bobble. And I think both those cards were considerations when you built the deck. Specifically when I got to play it last week during the last event before the banning, I noticed the uptick of prismatic endings was very helpful against Vexing Bobble.
Yeah.
And so I think, I would assume that it was very helpful for you. You said you actually didn't play too many Vexing Bobble decks, right?
No, I didn't. I played I played Mystic Forts with some blue cards round 2. I played True Futurism on Cloud Post in round 8. And I think those were the only ones, actually.
Okay. Yeah.
For the entire tournament. I was quite fortunate in my matchups. Which
it helps. It helps. It's the difference between going 0-3 and winning the whole damn thing, right?
Yeah.
So, have you made any changes to the deck now that it's been a week? Let's be honest. There's not a lot of time to sit around and be like, oh, we're making big changes. But is there anything that you see off the top of your head that could be changed immediately?
Yeah, I would probably go back to 4 plows to endings, but I haven't played very much, especially not breakfast since the event.
That's fair. You deserve a little time off.
But there are a few cards worth considering, and some changes worth thinking about.
Yeah. I think, so, I alluded to that when I was talking about the considerations for Vexing Bobble and Psychic Frog. But now that you have to, we really have to think about Atraxa and Archon again as the two things that we really need to deal with. So it makes sense to up the Swords of Plowshares count again. Whereas Psychic Frog can be hit by Prismatic Ending. Those obviously cannot. And then you don't have to worry about Vexing Bobbles anymore, so you can shave Prismatic Ending, with that into consideration as well. I think that those are the main two things that I was thinking as well. We'll see how the counter magic game progresses, and if Teferi is a consideration as a 2 of again. But I don't know. How do you feel about the metagame right now so far?
I haven't played it super much. I played a bit of Delver. So what I've noticed is there are some Eldrazi, some Delver, some Control. I haven't really analyzed the metagame that deeply. But
how do you feel about Delver in this matchup?
Yeah, I think the way the deck is built now with 6 or main deck removal spells, the Delver matchup is very good. That plus Nod being a super annoying blocker.
Yeah.
For them, it's they really need to temp you out and to attack your mana base, or land a impactful hate piece post board. But I still feel like having the abundance of removal spells, cheap removal, makes it so hard for them to actually do something.
I feel like when you're playing against a tempo deck, as long as you can stop them from doing their thing for the first few turns, if you can get past the point where daze affects what you're doing, by swordsing, a creature here or there, and then being like, yeah, sure, you can resolve your Murktide Regent, but now you're out of counter magic, you're out of removal for my guys. I can slam Nadu plus a thing and get to that point, and you can take a hit or two from a Murktide Regent and just be totally okay.
And Nadu just makes those matchups so unfair. You don't really care at all about their cages or something.
Yeah.
It's very, very rare that I actually use an ending on a cage. Usually they're for creatures, and I'm just winning with Nadu instead of the illusionist combo.
Yeah, getting to a point where you just go so much wider than them, and maybe even have like an Archimedes set back to block a Murktide region or something like that.
Yeah.
Even being like, well, I've just gone off with Nadu, but I put enough lands in play to play another Nadu, draw a bunch more cards, let my opponent attack in, block with Nadu so I don't die and swing in.
Yeah. That's actually one thing I missed with the card Delver of Secrets. It's blocking it with Narcomoeba. It's the best feeling. The Shuko equipped Narcomoeba is tailor-made to block Delvers.
Yeah, they're also in an odd situation where if they're playing, lightning bolts again, right? And they swing in with their Delver and are like, okay, I'm gonna block with my Nadu, and they're like, I'll bolt it, and it's like you've just 2-for-1 them somehow. So that's never good for you're drawing another card. They're using bolt and Delver to like get rid of your Nadu, but you've like traded a card for it because of Nadu's trigger. That can be just obnoxiously good. Just in a fair matchup.
Yeah. But I like generally with the new meta, there are a few cards I'm I'm higher on now than before, and one of them is actually Ornishant, because there are quite many more like Dark Ritual, Lions of Diamond decks, combo decks against which Ornishant is really good.
Oh.
There are a lot of more Pyroblasts and Lightning Bolts going around, especially like against those. Ornishant can be super powerful. Like I've had opponents with 5 cards in hand, like doing nothing against an Ornishant because their hand was like 2 Pyroblast, Bolt, and
you haven't lived until you've seen your opponent like Burning Wish with no other cards in hand, and you're like, I'll cast Ornishant in response, and they're just like, okay. That is the true peak of the game right there, when you're just like, not only did I time walk you, I just like won the game through making you not be able to interact.
Yeah, so this is Ornishant is a card that I think probably will be better in the breakfast deck going forward. I'm not sure if I would play it in the main deck but probably perhaps 2 in the sideboard. I'm like, as I said, not sure because I haven't constructed the deck like with proper thinking really. But another thing that I think is important now in the new metagame is kind of answering Chalice in a good way. And Ending was great against Vexing Bauble. It's kind of okay against Chalice, but I think Serenity is a card that probably gains a bit from this.
I was about to say, like, sideboard wise, I think Serenity is back in vogue. Yeah,
because in the past metagame it was only really, really good against the Painter, and then it was kind of awkward against many other decks like Mystic Forge. And now it's just much better, but I'm still not sure because it's still awkward against like combo decks with a bunch of artifacts.
Yeah,
because you play it and they just combo off on their turn.
It is nice in a world where those decks have to rely on defense grid now. Where you can play that and maybe just be like, well, if I don't die next turn, they lose their defense grid, they lose all their other stuff. I think those decks, I think we're going to see a rehashing of how the Mystic Forge deck is built over the next month or two. People have kind of, I think they were pretty solid on like Planar Nexus and Urza's Tower being like very good cards, but I think that shift is now like the standard as opposed to like a couple smart guys in the room figured it out. So it'll be interesting to see how that deck lines up after after a couple of weeks.
Yeah, it's still a super powerful deck even without Vexing Bauble, so it's still something to absolutely respect.
Yeah. What do you think our worst matches are with with the metagame right now?
I still think Blood Moon is awful, but I think the Blood Moon decks are easier to face now that they don't rely on Pyroblast and Vexing Bauble so heavily, but Chalice instead. Because now you can actually interact much more in the stack with like forcing their places safer.
Yeah, losing to a turn 1 Vexing Bauble, turn 2 Magus of the Moon or Blood Moon was
brutal.
always rough.
And now you can actually like play something out and then force their Blood Moon and have somewhat of a proactive game plan yourself.
Yeah.
But I still don't think I'm still not happy to face Blood Moon decks. And I'm not super happy about facing Eldrazi either.
I was about to say. Yeah. Pretty much any deck that can really screw with our mana base seems like it can be a real problem.
Yeah.
The one deck I don't worry about too much is the like Jeskai control decks, because I just feel like they're a little too slow. They do mess with our mana base. You know, they can play Blood Moon, they can play Back to Basics, but I don't think that they have the like game ending, you know, plays that the other decks have. Like, we still have a way to play around that, and they're not actively hitting us fast enough that we can't figure out ways around their hate.
Yeah, and actually, many of those decks are actually kind of playing Tamis and stuff, which makes all the cards in our deck useful. Because their benefit in the past were like blanking our removal spells, but now they have targets as well.
Yeah. Tamiya was an interesting include that I got to mess around with because I tried your build out, and man, I'll tell you, that is a card that every time I put it into play after board, I was like, wow, this feels great.
Yeah, it is great. It is great, and props to I think it was Max and Ave from the North American Eternal Weekend who started doing that.
Yeah, I mean, we all knew that card was good, but it's just like amazing in that deck, and especially because it synergizes so well with the Urge of Saga tokens as well.
Yeah,
getting them to be a little bit larger on an attack. You know, you get a couple attacks in with that thing, and you've got like 2 tokens out. You know, just having an anthem basically for your tokens is pretty amazing. All right, so looking at the sideboard cards, do you think that there's anything in your current build that sideboard wise that you would remove?
Just let me check.
No problem. Got you with a fast one there. Yeah, looking at it too right now.
I think perhaps more. I'm not sure if I want to remove any card. I mean, any card completely. I change numbers definitely.
Probably some number of force negations and consign to memories, perhaps.
Yeah, but I think force negation are still good to have many of. Like I said, now with Vex and Bobble gone.
True. Yeah.
There are many decks where they are very, very powerful, and especially now with more Dark Ritual based combo decks running around.
Something else I noticed about your build is that you had removed the hollowed Lotus Petal from the main build.
Yeah, that I actually am a bit higher on now, so perhaps that's coming back in. I'm not sure yet. But I think I will probably not play a Teferi Time Raveler in the sideboard going forward. Probably 2 main or just 1 main, but none at the board.
Okay.
And then they'll probably go 1 graveyard hate piece lower. Especially because I don't think Blue Back Reanimator will be the menace it once was. I think having 3 graveyard hate pieces probably will suffice. But I won't. That's like 2 cards, and perhaps that would be like 1 Serenity and 1 more Ornishant or something like that, or perhaps 2 Serenities.
Yeah.
It's my like initial thought on the spot right now.
Well, beyond that, I wanted to talk to you about sort of your stance on how the sort of your tempo with the deck is concerned, because you play in a way that, like, what I got to see on you know in that finals match, you play in a way that's very reserved. You basically just wait out your chance and sort of leave it to the opponent to like kind of guess at what you're going to be doing. So they have to preempt all of your moves, and eventually, when they're wrong, you just get to slam the thing and win. Now, you did top deck Nadu one time, so there is that. But like, you set yourself up for those situations. Can you speak on that?
Sure. Yeah. So like there are absolutely situations where I go for the turn two, but I generally like playing a bit slower, and that's like the power from this deck is like the same power with like Insect of Days Past. It's playing with your opponent's fear, like forcing them to slow themselves down to be able to interact with you, and that's powerful because that forces them to do that even if you don't have it.
Yeah.
So you can have like a dirty hand, like cantrip, and actually not have it, and they still need to respect you. You having it.
Yeah, having access to just 3 mana is enough to scare a lot of people off of doing something crazy.
Yeah, you're playing a turn one Shuko, like they will need to keep like either have Force Will ready or keep removal spells up, which requires them to keep mana up every turn.
Yeah.
So like that's one part of the dance, and then the other part of the dance is like if they overcommit, like really pounding the combo, like really making them pay for not respecting combo enough in a situation where they don't.
Yeah, if they go full burn deck and just tap out every turn, it's not gonna it's not gonna be great. Yeah.
But and like doing it requires you to read your opponent in some way as well. Like for example, in semifinals, we watch it. It was very obvious that my opponent had a endurance. They would never keep a hand with another elf deck. We were open deck list, so I knew what I was playing. And just not have a turn one play on the draw. The only reason they kept that hand was because of endurance. And like those things are important to like take up on. Like, okay, so my opponent has left this mana open every turn and not has a bunch of cards in hand. I haven't played a creature. Okay, they obviously have some kind of removal spell, or like I've only played I don't know, white spells, removal spells versus this Delver deck, but they still have a bunch of cards in hand. They will probably have forced my last, I don't know, Plow and Murktide. So, okay, so they probably have Pyroblasts left in hand, or so those kind of small tells to really like know when you can actually play your things out. Like when they're down to one and you have a daze plus a Nadu, yeah, sure, then you can play your Nadu into their Pyroblast because you can daze it.
Yeah. That was something with Vexing Bobble I would always do, is like I would be like, yeah, I've got it, cool, and then like immediately play a Nadu into like a Pyroblast, and then be like, daze, and they're like, I have a Vexing Bobble out. I'm like, I just thought it didn't let me do my combo. I wasn't thinking about the fact that I can't actually cast my counter magic too. Like when you're trying to counter stuff, but like when you're like, yeah, I'm going to protect my thing with this, you're going through all these. So now not having to worry about being a bonehead and like casting counter magic into something that counters it is kind of nice, because you get caught up sometimes when you're in your lines. You're like, okay, I'm going to do this, then you're going to do this, and then I'm just going to draw like 8 cards and I'll be good again. And you kind of forget sometimes. Well, one of the other interesting things that I kind of noticed about this deck was, it's still a deck that I think that a lot of people don't necessarily understand completely. Like everyone knows Nadu, right? Then not everyone I think is aware that there are like 3 different builds of Nadu, right? Like, and Cephalid Breakfast I think is the most dangerous of the 3, because you have that instant combo that you can just go and do. But I think a lot of people, especially right now, a lot of people are calling for the ban of Nadu because it didn't get hit. And they're like, oh, it takes forever. The games go on and on and on. And I'm like, well, I don't know. Like, I just draw 8 cards. Normally my opponent scoops. Or, I draw 8 cards and then I do my combo. I'm not taking up too much time. But I think that a lot of people don't realize that there are several different decks. One of them does take a little bit of time to go through their entire loop. So I get that. What put you on Breakfast specifically?
For this event, you mean, or
As a lifestyle choice, you know?
Yeah, well, I have played Breakfast for like 2 years now, or something like so. So because I like, yeah, what you just talked about. You can dictate the tempo of the matchup, and it has a lot of play to it in that regard, which I found really fun with a combo deck, like to really dictate. Yeah, instill fear in my opponent while still like being able to play some kind of mid-range game, be it with Stoneforge, or be now with Nadu or construct tokens and stuff.
Yeah.
Uh,
So here's something I kind of picked up while we were talking. You mentioned how this deck has a similar style to Infect. Were you an Infect player at one point?
a little bit, but
Okay.
I have the cards. I have 2 Alpha Berserks I bought to play.
Oh,
Infect.
nice. Yeah, awesome.
But now I don't get to use them very much. But
yeah. I came from my background was Infect. You know, I played Rug Delver for a while, but like Infect or Death Shadow were sort of where I was in the last couple of years, and that was sort of what drew me to Cephalid Breakfast, because I was looking for that like combo control situation where you can you can take a beat and you can play a little bit more circumspect and play the slower game and wait till the doors open and go for it. But one of the things I like about this deck over Infect, aside from the fact that it's just full of ones that die immediately when Orcish Bowmasters comes down, and I couldn't cast my Invigorates into Vexing Bauble. So we'll see where that deck lands. I think I'll having Fenrir's Cloud on in a little while to talk about how Infect goes. But one of the things I liked about that is that you get that same style of deck where you can end games quickly if you need to, or you can play the slower game, play the more mid-range game, and run it like that.
Yeah, and that's really fun. That's the reason I really liked the deck and liked the Infect in the past.
Yeah.
I think I've said, I don't know if it was on your podcast or somewhere else. Like my first, my start with Legacy began with watching the Grand Prix in New Jersey in 2014. With
what a good time! That was a fun place. I had the world's worst old fashioned ever there, but aside from that, the event was amazing. They poured like a whole domino sugar packet into like some soda water. Didn't mix it around at all. I don't know if you drink or if you understand what an old fashioned is. Yeah. So like it was just like the absolute. I asked the waiter too. I was like, "Hey, not for nothing. If they're bad, let me know. How are your guys' old fashions here?" And he was like, "Oh, they're excellent." I was like, "Wow, okay. Like let's do it." You know, like I don't even need an excellent one when I'm on the road. Can I just get a medium one? You know, like. And I watched the bartender like look at the ticket and go shake his head. I was like, oh no. He just says, he's like, goes over to the sugar packet thing he's got, rips open a thing of domino sugar, dumps it out on top of the ice that's already in there, gets like a maraschino cherry and a lemon, not an orange, just a lemon, and just like kind of jams them all in there, and then like just pours the whiskey over it and like a little bit of soda water, and then like puts it on the thing. I'm like, this is going to be bad. I didn't want this. But the rest of the event was super fun. That was actually where I traded my I had you get the Brainstorm playmat at that one.
Yep.
I traded all my Brainstorm playmat and sleeves for 4 foil Nimble Mongoose, because I was like, they're going to ban Treasure Cruise and I'm going to have Nimble Mongoose in foil. And they did ban Treasure Cruise, but Nimble Mongoose never really saw play after that.
A little bit, but no, not in the same way as before. But you still have them, do you?
I still do. Yeah, I'm not getting rid of those. Those are part of my life now. They're up here somewhere. But yeah, Larsson, as always, man, it was a pleasure having you on. I was glad to get a chance to catch up with you, and of course, congratulate you on the win. It's no small feat to take down an Eternal Weekend, and I'm glad that you were able to do that.
Thank you. Yeah, it was. The event was bit of a mess. Like it was 11 rounds in the first day. It was.
Yeah, I want to have Tom DeDecker on to kind of break down
Yeah.
that article he wrote, because I think it's super important that we shed a little light onto some of the logistics end of that stuff. And I got a chance to reach out to Nick Koss, and I had that interview with him at Eternal Weekend, and I feel like that settled a lot of the questions people had about like what the logistics were leading up to the event and stuff like that. And I just feel like as a community we need to make sure that when an event isn't perfect, it doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to be at least good, And if the logistics and running the event and there's all those kind of problems, it's just things that it behooves us to call out so that they can be fixed in the future. It's like not even a mean thing. It's just like, hey, like let's make sure that this doesn't happen next time. Yeah. Anyhow, again, it was great having you on, and I expect to see big things from you next year.
I hope so. Always a pleasure to be on.
Yeah. All right. Well, everybody, thanks for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, all that stuff, and we will catch you next time. Have a good one. Before you go, I need some help. Please subscribe to this channel and do your part to help sustain the legacy content ecosystem. Just subscribing to this channel goes a long way to reminding YouTube that people love and support this format. Now, if you really want to go the extra mile, you should think about supporting us through Patreon. Both the links for subscription and Patreon are right here. And if you're listening on an audio format, you can go to patreon.com/eternaldurdles. Thanks so much for watching.